Hello, welcome back to Fromsoft Serve, where I'm apparently playing as Hideo Kojima. I don't know why that just now clicked for me, but it kind of looks like Hideo Kojima. I found something cool in Bloodborne while I was upscaling textures in Burgertown, which is the canonical name for Bergenworth, just so you know. Burgertown. This is the wall here that changed everything. Not really. Pretty normal looking wall. Just some bricks. And but I noticed, I was like, okay, well this looks kind of flat, even for a FromSoft game. They don't like using parallax occlusion mapping. They're not really into that. But I noticed, I was like, damn, I don't think this thing's using a normal map. Also, it doesn't really seem to be reflecting anything. Or not reflecting, but like there's no specular map. Like there's nothing. And I was like, well, this is weird. So what I did, I was like, okay, let me log out. Let me log out and close out of the game. And I opened up Smithbox. And I, of course, loaded the map. And I flew to that wall. And it turns out it's model 221. So we go over to our Bloodborne folder. We go to M32000000, as that is Burgertown. And that's where they store all the Fiverr models. And we look at 221. So we actually, no, we don't unpack that. I forgot. Not for what we're doing here. We don't need to unpack them. So we load up the model in the Fiverr editor. I generally like to fly to the model. I think a newer version will like auto center on the model. It'll be very nice. Anyway, so we go to materials and we can highlight and we can see the thing that we were looking at was this portion. So we go to edit textures, and this is where I found something very interesting. This is why it was flat. As you can tell, it has the diffuse texture or albedo texture, which is the main one that just looks like bricks. They have that turned on, but they're actually using a dummy texture for the specular, for the reflectance map, for the bump mapping. The displacement map, I knew they were using a dummy because they use a dummy one. They don't use the displacement map on almost any model I've looked at because that would be like parallax, and they just don't really fuck with that, except for a few cases where I've seen them. But they don't do it as a displacement texture. It's inside the normal map. It's a whole thing. Don't worry about it. That's a different video. And yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Y'all just not using the textures that you have? Okay, that's weird. And then what I did is I was like, okay, well, hold on. Let's go into the actual texture file for Burgertown. Did they also not make those textures for this specific surface? Is that what we're saying? And so I went down and I was like, okay, so we know it's wall underscore 925. It's like forensic texture investigator. Is that a new job? So you'll see underscore A, which is the albedo. And then, oh my God, there's a normal map. There's the reflectance. There's the specular. So they have the texture. They're not using them. So I was like, well, okay, fuck that. And then I made the mistake of putting the specular texture under the specular texture when you actually want to put the reflectance under specular. It's a whole thing. Don't worry about it. And then the specular goes under shininess because it's, PBR. And yeah, I was used to like DS1 where it's just diffuse specular and bump mapping. Anyway, oh crap, I screwed that up. So basically you just tell it, hey, homie, use the textures that are already there. You just tell it to use underscore N, underscore S, underscore R, underscore A, and cool beans. Now, while I was there, I also noticed they did it on other parts. So this top part, they also were like, hey, by the way, we're not going to use the reflectance. And it's like, oh, okay, that's weird. Now, I was talking to Trivia, who is a modding mutual that I've worked with a lot. And she was like, well, maybe they were Just trying to save some memory usage a tiny bit, because it's such a small amount of memory they'd be saving here, like a tiny, tiny bit. And I noticed this problem with like 10 other surfaces in Burgertown alone. So I've looked at other models in Bloodborne, and this has not been the case. So this kind of cracked open a whole new world of like, okay, are there other ones out there? And I looked in Central Yharnam, and I haven't found any yet that are like this. And I've looked at hundreds of Bloodborne models. So this might just be an outlier where they did this in Burgertown, but I think not. I think this will be more common now that I know to look for this. So we have the normal map. And basically you go through each one, and they don't do it for each one. You'll notice on this surface, they correctly use... Actually, I don't know why they capitalized the TIF on that one. Fromsoft, what are we doing? What do we got going? Yeah, let's swap this one while we're here. 944. Because yeah, I looked, and they ended up having a texture for each one. So it's not like Prepare to Die edition of DS1, where back then, and like Demon Souls, they didn't even have a normal map on some things. They didn't even make one. They didn't have a specular map on a lot of surfaces. They didn't even make one because, of course, like at that point, it was so early on for them that they still were in the world where they just didn't make them. Even DS2 lacks a ton of specular maps. Like DS2 just doesn't have a lot of them. Dark Souls Remastered has... That was one of the big things they did in Dark Souls Remastered, is every surface has a normal map. Every surface has a specular map. Now, most of the time, the specular map goes unused. But it is there, and it is active. But they sort of put it at a default level, so it doesn't really do much. But they technically have one. That was one of the biggest things that they did with Dark Souls Remastered. Huge, huge difference. That it doesn't really get credit for, but it's kind of inside baseball shit. So you look at the other ones, and you're like, okay, cool, got it. So you save it, boom, done. Now you have in your mind what it looked like, right? I'll have it in the thumbnail as well, so don't worry about it. Okay, so we saved it. Let's relaunch Bloodborne. This is going to be a shorter video, I promise. It's going to be like under 10 minutes. Because this is just a small little thing I found. I got to upscale Burgertown textures. I got to get back to that. Okay, so let's hit continue. I just thought this was interesting enough that someone might be like, what the fuck? That was weird. Okay, and now you can tell that it's actually using the normal map now. And it's using the reflectance map. Which, does it change it massively? No. It just blends into the environment where the rest of the environment was using a specular and a reflectance map. But it was tuned to a way that it blends in. But now you have actual perceived depth. Mainly, the normal map's the big difference. The fact that it wasn't using a normal map is criminal. Because it lacked any sort of depth in between the bricks. And now with the normal map, it does. So it's one of those small, cool things. And it's one of those easy wins where, like, I'm not generating a new normal map. I'm just using the one that's already there. Ooh, emulators calculating something. Oh my god. Okay, alright. Hey, emulator? It's all good, big dog. I actually fixed it on these pillars, didn't have their normal map activated. The stairs commonly did not. And then this wall here I fixed as well, as this top portion, middle portion, and bottom portion did not have their reflectance maps, normal maps activated, and now they do. Just kind of weird things. Also, I found the first mesh hole in Bloodborne, that I found at least. Hey, there it is. Look at that. Oh my god, look at that mesh hole. It's hideous. Look at that gaping mesh hole. Ugh. That's brutal. That's a brutal... I think that's the first one I really found. So hats off to Fromsoft, because I found like a bajillion in DS1 almost immediately. So Bloodborne's been a lot more polished in that respect. But yeah, anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Share it, like, comment, subscribe, all the cool things. And I'll see you on the next video. And sub to my Patreon if you want to get ad-free versions of the videos and get downloads of my mods that are quicker. It helps a ton. I've been blown away by the support. And yeah, I'll see you on the next video, fellow hunters.